The panel was good. It was great to actually be on a physical panel. It's pretty much almost two years ago I was on my last panel, which was in November in Rome. So it was nice to get a sort of semblance of normality back, where you're actually seeing real people and not stuck behind a computer. The panel itself was, it's a good panel, important panel. The subject matter in the title was a bit around, future products, but certainly I spent a lot of time talking about existing products at ICE, because there's a lot of things already in the toolkit at ICE that people have been using in the environmental space for over 10 years. We bought the Climate Exchange back in 2010, and our environmental markets, they're performing the role of valuing positive externalities like the value of green energy, and they're valuing negative externalities, so the cost of pollution. Certainly our most liquid contracts are the carbon allowance futures that support mandated cap and trade programs. So that's all about negative externality. It's putting a cost on pollution. And it's something that has been shown to work in practice, so particularly in Europe, but even more specifically in the UK. The reason why there is very little coal in the merit order of electricity generation in the UK is through the application of carbonomics, which is putting a price on the cost of pollution. So we've managed to effectively invert the merit order between coal and natural gas. So we've done that coal to natural gas switching in the UK, which has all been done by applying carbonomics. So if you were to burn coal in a normal economic model, it's cheaper to burn coal than natural gas. But because coal's more carbon intensive, if you apply the cost of carbon, it's more valuable to burn the natural gas than the coal, which is exactly what the policy is intended to do, and you're supposed to abate your emissions. There will be new products for sure, but it was, you can one of the points I was making at the end was you can effectively, we operate cap and trade markets in Europe, in the UK, 2 in the US, so California and Reggie. So one of the things we'd like to see is more countries, governments who believe in market-based forces adopting more cap and trade programs because they work. So we'd like to see more cap and trades being implemented. And from a positive externality point of view, where we've got a great business in the US, renewable energy certificates in the US, that guarantee of origin model is likely to be reused, whether that's, in hydrogen, whether you're looking at blue hydrogen versus green hydrogen, you could see that being a certificate market. And importantly, I think that financial markets need to solve for the preservation of natural capital over the extraction of it. And that could come in the form of a guarantee of origin. So a guarantee of origin for carbon capture and storage, whether that's nature-based or whether that's direct air capture or carbon capture, utilization and storage. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to solve for that problem with new products. And I also talked a little bit about a recent announcement that we made with a partnership with Intrinsic Value Exchange, with the New York Stock Exchange. And that's thinking about that preservation versus extraction, but solving for it by using a security rather than a commodity. So it's about effectively creating an asset class, natural asset class, and having that valued like an equity. So that's really sort of interesting. It's groundbreaking, and it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. I was interested just to listen to Hugo on the metals, because I'm not so close to the metals business, And clearly metals and and minerals will be an important component of energy transition. If you're building windmills and infrastructure, you're going to need metals. And also if you're moving to an EV environment, and so batteries are going to be mineral intensive. So it's quite interesting to listen to what Hugo was doing. Richard was talking about power, but it's interesting on power. The way that you green power is through the guarantee of origin. So we list those already. You don't know when you're taking your electricity off the grid to take your heating and your lighting. You're getting whatever's on the grid. So if you want to green that, you have to buy the certificate to say that you've bought green energy. So that solution's pre-existing in the power market. And I also find the interesting thing about power is a secondary form of energy. So actually the pricing of power is determined by something else. It's effectively determined by the marginal megawatt hour, and the marginal megawatt hour is usually a hydrocarbon. It's either gas or sometimes coal. And in Europe, therefore, the price of power is really gas plus carbon or coal plus carbon. So power is an interesting market because it's effectively a derivative of something else. No, we didn't. We didn't discuss it. Clearly, it's interesting. It's not just the UK though; it's Europe, and I was also reading today, China are effectively rationing electricity, so it's global, which makes sense because energy supply chains are global. We're all sort of interconnected. The thing I would say about what's happening at the moment is possibly a peer into the future, because the talk is this is there's supply constraints in the market. There's a whole host of anecdotes in terms of what's causing those supply constraints. So if you're in the camp of energy transition that you want to keep hydrocarbons in the ground, then that's going to be a supply constrained market. So the transition is going to be complex. There's going to be uncertain outcomes. So I think we're going to see increased volatility in the space, and that's why we need markets, right? Because we need to be able to hedge and smooth our exposure to volatile short-term pricing. The network that ICE has in this space, sort of serving energy transition. We've got this global network of exchanges, clearinghouses, technology, and data, and it's really this one big valuation engine that gives people access to transparency for price, and that's going to be integral to managing energy transition. You combine our environmental markets so that they're pricing these externalities that are critical to narrow the green premium. We talked about this a little bit in the panel, where Bill Gates, in his book How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, talks about we need to narrow the green premium because cleaner things tend to cost more in the beginning. So you do that by either making clean energy more valuable through the positive attribute, or you make the hydrocarbon more expensive through the negative attribute. So we provide all that price transparency, but they don't work on their own. It's effectively spread relationships. When we talked about coal to natural gas switching, it's the relationship between the underlying commodity and the negative attribute. So if you combine our environmental markets with our leading global energy benchmarks, it's a really sort of it's an essential tool for effectively facilitating and navigating the energy transition. And there's so many places that it touches within the ICE organization. I can give another example where we've got our global carbon futures contracts, and those are we've developed a global carbon index through the ICE Data Services Index business, which is effectively an aggregate of those futures contracts. They can be listed on an ETF, and that's sitting on the New York Stock Exchange. So we're taking the New York Stock Exchange or exchange and clearing house model, and we're packaging that up with the data services business. So we're effectively all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to bring price transparency, but we can do it in different ways across the ICE organization. So that's pretty exciting that we're able to do that. I don't think anyone really has the breadth and depth of liquidity in products, nor the breadth and depth of services that we have in this space.